Dr. Tiffany Stoner-Harris, welcome to Real Conversations.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
Good,
Good.
good. Glad to be here.
It's good to have you here. I'm glad you decided to do this. Like always, I think we're going to learn a lot today. Talking about co-parenting, of course, and I love the conversation that we had off
Yeah.
camera. Learning a lot. Those are always sometimes the best conversations I have. But I really want to get into some. I know with co-parenting, talking to some other people that I know about co-parenting, there's some positives with it, and sometimes there's some challenges every now and then. But let's talk about you and your co-parenting right now. Why don't we start with a little bit? How did your co-parenting journey begin, and what was those early days like?
Whew. Okay, so my co-parenting journey began 18 years ago. It's been a long time.
Mhm.
However, it's just as fresh today as it was back then. Ironically, I say even though our daughters are three daughters are all adults, there's still very much elements of co-parenting. They're all single adults, so they're still pretty connected to family. But kind of going back to answer your
Mhm.
question, in the beginning, I would say it was definitely a learning process. Going from being a two-parent household, intact family, as some would say, to and actually my ex-husband was military at the time, and so not only were we divorcing, but he was also relocated within that time frame as well, to another state. And so we were co-parenting across state lines, which was interesting, a challenge for sure at
Right,
times.
right.
Just trying to make sure the girls stay connected, with their dad and vice versa. But in the beginning, I would say, for me, I was trying to balance my own grief and loss of the marriage while also trying to be my healthiest self
Mhm.
for the girls and parenting, being their full-time parent. And so there were more challenges for sure during those early days,
Okay.
and really just trying to figure out how to co-parent with a person who, we had ultimately parted ways,
Right.
as far as our dynamic with each other.
Mhm.
And so, I think for me, it was really centering the girls. I had to in all my decisions that were made, especially in those early years of just really prioritizing them, centering them. The good thing is, I would say we were able to some of the what I call like the business matters.
Mhm.
We were able to those things were kind of worked out in the beginning, and so we didn't have as much conflict in those areas. I appreciate and I'm thankful that, we both knew we were dedicated to raising the girls in the best way that we could. And so I think we were on the same page in that way.
Okay. Okay.
So that helped.
I would think, and going back when you said, he had besides the break,
Mhm.
it wasn't just that he's possibly moving across town. I mean, it was stuff
Mm.
that he's moving out of state.
Yes.
And I'm sure
Yes.
that had to be conversation. How do we do this together? How do we co-parent? Because evidently you guys made the decision that we want to be parenting together here.
Hmm.
But being that far away, and the girls at the time, which I thought your girls now were probably young. I
Yes.
mean, even though they still are young, but
Yes.
them being young, that had to be tough on them and things. So,
It was. I mean, they were 9, 7, turning 7, and 2, turning 3 that year. So,
hmm
the youngest our youngest daughter, in those early years, like, she had no recollection of us as a married couple, and
hmm
so I think that was one of the things that really kind of pushed me to make sure, like they stayed connected. And even that their dad and I were, she was able to see us work collaboratively together,
Right.
even though we weren't, we were no longer a married couple. But I just thought
Mhm.
that was important for her to see that,
Mhm.
that part.
So what changed over time? The breakup happens. He moves out of state.
Mhm.
Girls are young. It's a shock to everybody.
Mhm.
But over the years, I guess what the positive things was a lot of just open communications. That you have a good network of family and friends here, as well as him having a good network. How did that grow?
Yeah, I would say, we were fortunate to have a support system. So, his family here, my family here, really just wrapped around the girls.
Hmm.
And so that was a blessing in itself. Communication, we didn't always communicate in the best ways in the beginning. However, I will say, whenever we disagreed early on, and even to this day, I'd say we were able to kind of shield the girls from that. So, they didn't have to hear or see or be a part of those disagreements. And I am truly thankful for that, because I feel like that was also a part of that stability that they needed to see us working together. Even though he and I knew that, we weren't seeing eye to eye, and, maybe sometimes didn't even really like each other, if I'm
Right.
being honest.
Right.
But they didn't have to know that.
Yeah.
And that's so important, for parents to really figure out how to have those disagreements and be, in authentic relationships, but also how to navigate, or, move in a different way so that the kids don't get hurt in that process,
Mhm.
because you will disagree. Like, if you didn't disagree, you'd probably still be married,
Right. 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 There you go.
So, I mean, that's a part of, that's just gonna naturally happen, but it's how you deal with it.
Yeah. So were there times that, like, say, those disagreements, sometimes it can be some small disagreements, and other times it could be some big disagreements, and sometimes the blame game might want to, hey,
Mhm.
and you have to hold off on that, I'm assuming. I
Yes,
mean, so
yes.
yeah.
So, compromise, I say you have to be able to compromise.
Hmm.
So for me, compromise came into play as long as it wasn't something around safety, physical safety, emotional safety, mental safety. As long as those things were okay, I might not agree on when the girls are there, and some rules in the household might not be my rules, but as long as there was no, like, again, any concern for safety,
Right.
I just had to kind of sit in that, and it didn't always feel good. So I'm just being honest, it didn't always feel good,
Uh-huh.
but again, being able to prioritize them and not let them get caught in this tug of war.
Thank you so much for being
You're
a part of our
welcome. Thank
conversations
you
with us.
for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, such an important topic.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you too.